Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be she told me she wasn't looking for random hookups, then hooked up with another guy. So, this particular email, this guy, he's got a roommate situation where there's apparently four people that live under the same roof. So, an old roommate moved out, and this cute girl moves in, and so apparently the emailer already had this weekend trip planned with his other two roommates, and he says, hey, you should join us. And of course she did. And so on most of the trip, I guess they rented scooters, and so he and this new girl took off on their scooter together and spent the next couple days together mostly. And apparently there was a little kissy poo going on, and he's thinking he's finally going to get to the promised land. And then she goes, hey, I'm not looking for random hookups. So he backed off and stopped his approach, thought, well, I'll just slow it down a little bit. Anyways, like they get back, and then the very next day, she goes out clubbing, I guess with some of the other roommates or mutual friends. Or I guess one of the other roommates is a girl as well. So I think it may be two guys, two girls, if I'm... It's kind of hard to tell, but that's kind of what it looks like. And so this girl goes to the club with one of the other roommates or acquaintance or friend or whatever, and ends up going home with some other dude. Remember, this is the girl that says, I'm not looking for random hookups. But then she goes and does a random hookup with a guy she met at the club. And then his roommate's like, hey, yeah, she went home with some dude from the club. Anyways, she does the walk of shame at like 11 a.m. the next day, and he hasn't really talked to her much. But he kind of feels like a chump because now he knows kind of what's going on. So typically if a woman says, hey, I'm not looking for a random hookup, and you're fooling around with her, usually what that means is she just doesn't want a random hookup with you. So you got to look at what women do, not what they say. And this is where, if you're in a roommate situation, girl just moves in, this is where your game's got to be tight. Because if you slip up, or if you give her the impression that if she goes all the way with you and hooks up, that you're going to become kind of clingy and needy. Because most relatively attractive women have experienced this before. They've met guys, they've gone out on dates, and the dudes just become super clingy. And so if she just moved in with a bunch of people, she doesn't want her roommate, her male roommate that she's hanging out with, doing a little kissy poo with. If she can kind of tell that he's going to get attached, and it may not end well, then she'll say something like that so it doesn't go all the way, just because she doesn't want to deal with the drama of somebody in her house. And because if your game is sloppy and she kind of feels like you're going to be a stage 5 clinger, you're going to get rejected. So he says, hey, coach, I've been working on improving my dating life, and I've read your book 6 times now. And I wanted to get your perspective on a situation I'm dealing with. 3 days ago, a new girl moved into my apartment as a roommate. I had already booked a 2-day trip to a nearby island with my other two roommates when she moved in. We asked if she wanted to join us. She agreed, and during the trip it was clear that we were interested in each other. At least at that moment in time, it appeared clear. We rented 2 scooters, and she chose to ride with me. Well, it definitely seems like she's interested, at least at this point in our journey, our weekend journey. After an hour, we decided to separate from the group and spent 2 amazing days together, exploring beaches and enjoying each other's company. It felt like we had known each other for much longer because of everything we experienced together in such a short time. So what does that tell you? He's kind of got her on a pedestal. He's a little dopey. He's pretty super excited. He's like, oh, I finally met the one for me. Started to treat her like a girlfriend. Probably got a little sloppy in his game. Again, he says he read the book 6 times. So I don't know if that's before this happened or after this happened. But at the end of the day, let's see what happens. He says at the end of the trip, we ended up sleeping together, only heavy kissing. You should have said, well, we slept in the same bed together and kissed, but it didn't go any further. He says, but she always stopped me before finishing the deal because she wasn't looking for random hookups. So that tells me his seduction game was a little sloppy, didn't really understand 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and he kept trying to advance things when clearly she wasn't open to it. So he's got to spend more time in the book. And this is why I say not only do you got to read it 10, 15 times, but you got to practice it. Because you have to go through the seduction process enough times and encounter enough resistance to recognize when you're going too fast. And just typically younger guys, he kind of sounds like he's probably in college or something maybe. And younger guys just have, for the most part, haven't been in enough situations to where their game is just really smooth. In other words, if he hooks up with her, he's going to be able to keep his mouth shut and not blab it to half the town or not be doing cartwheels telling everybody that they're going to live happily ever after. In other words, she wants to know if they hook up that it can be just a hookup and that he's not going to get all emotionally wrapped up and clingy and make things weird and awkward. But he's trying to advance things. He's getting rejected, so that tells me he's probably just hasn't had enough practice in these kinds of situations to really get smooth yet to where he doesn't get rejected. So he says, I found this attractive, her saying, I'm not looking for random hookups. What she's really telling him, and he doesn't realize it at the moment, is that she's just not looking for a random hookup with him. Probably because she doesn't think he can handle it. In other words, he's not going to really make it an easy and effortless, drama-free type thing. If he gets a little too clingy, now she's got a situation where she's got a dopey roommate who makes everything weird and awkward. In other words, he gave her the vibe that he just couldn't handle it. She was his kryptonite. So she decided that she was not going to let him get to the promised land. I found this attractive and thought she had potential for a serious relationship. Bro, you just met. I think she's got potential for a serious relationship. That just tells me he definitely doesn't have enough experience. Hey, man, if I was in your situation, I would have never even probably got this far when I was your age because I really didn't understand things back then. But that's okay. At least you're here and you have the opportunity because I assume you're going to be living together for a while. So you should look at a delay is not an outright denial. It just means you're going a little too fast, a little too anxious, a little too serious. You probably treat her a little too much like a girlfriend. You're just like, the fact that you're saying she's got potential for a serious relationship, you were probably treating her like a girlfriend in those 2 days together. And she just made the decision that, yeah, if I sleep with this guy, there's no way he's going to be able to handle it. So she decided not to. As she checked all the boxes that I look for in a partner. Again, you just can't know that yet. It's too soon. In other words, he's ready to give her the Stanley Cup and say, ding, ding, you're the winner. Let's live happily ever after. And she just like, I just moved in here and I'm just getting to know everybody. It takes time for a woman to fall in love. And he's already, to go ring shopping, it sounds like. So this is not the first guy that's behaved this way with her when he really likes her. And she's been around the block enough times with other dudes to know that it usually doesn't end well, especially if you're living with the guy. So he talked her out of sleeping with him is what happened. However, the day after we returned home, she went to a club with my other roommate, a girl. So, yeah, I guess it seems like it's 2 girls and 2 guys. Later, my roommate came home alone and told me that the girl I was seeing, again, he's like, we're seeing each other. You hung out on a weekend. You're not seeing one another. So, again, in his mind, he's in a relationship with her. Had left with a guy she met at the club. Your phrase, judge women by what they do, not what they say, keeps running through my mind. I'm feeling pretty stupid. Obviously, the guy did something I did not. Yeah, his game was tight. He was a random guy in a club, a random hookup, and wasn't going to cause any drama with roommates. So, when she came back home around 11 a.m. the next day, the walk of shame, as we like to call it, she said hi, but I didn't respond, and she went to take a shower. I would have just been like, hey, heard you had a good night. I would have said something. I heard you had an eventful evening. You got to troll. You got to have some fun with it. Because you got to communicate you're totally indifferent to it. Like, it doesn't bother you one way or another. As a matter of fact, you should be amused by the whole thing and take it as an opportunity to break her balls. Because then that's going to communicate that you really don't care one way or another. But if she says hi and you just ignore her like your butt hurt, that's not going to help. So my question is, how should I handle this situation? Check like nothing happened because she's not my girlfriend. Yeah, exactly. You made the mistake of treating her like your girlfriend, and that's why she bounced and went and hooked up with some random guy from the club, because the random guy wasn't going to create any drama in the house. But hooking up with you, whatever you said, whatever you did when you were with her, you communicated that you couldn't handle it. So that's why she withdrew your access to the box. Yesterday, we were all at a party, and she saw me having fun with other girls and seemed really interested in talking to me, but I just chose not to do it. What's your take on this? Well, I would definitely be talking to other women because she told you she's not looking for a random hookup, but then she went out and did a random hookup. So you shouldn't get butthurt one way or another. You'd be totally indifferent to it. If you're put your attention on other women and talking to other women and seducing other women. How would you treat her if you were tired of fucking her? How would you treat her if you didn't like having sex with her? What if the sex was bad, or if she always has real bad breath? But yet you got to live with her. You'd be nice. You're happy to talk to her if she comes over. You're not going to communicate you're mad or you're upset or you're butthurt. You're indifferent. You're just not giving her any of your romantic attention. You're going to give it to somebody else, unless, of course, she starts touching you and getting extra close. Then you can initiate kissy poo and hanging out. But if she backs off and gets a little distant, then go back to talking to other girls. This can actually work to your advantage if you know how to play it. But it seems like you're coming off as like you're kind of butthurt, and so that's not going to help. So when you see her, say hello, smile, make eye contact. But again, if you were tired of having sex with her, you wouldn't really care. You would just treat her like another human being. You wouldn't be bothered one way or another. You'd be kind of glad that now she's got some other guy to hook up with, because then she's not going to get all clingy with you if you start hooking up with other women. That's the way you need to look at it. That's really, truly what being indifferent to it means. It means you don't care one way or another. If she wants to come over and be close to you and start touching you physically, you'll reciprocate slowly. But if she withdraws and goes and gives somebody else her attention, then you're going to give your romantic attention to the next girl in line or the next girl at the party or whatever it happens to be. So, in other words, it's if she shows that she's open to hanging out and having fun, potentially, and hooking up, advance things. And if she seems like she wants to be away from you, let her go be away from you. Be glad that she's away from you so you can give your time and attention to other girls that you obviously don't live with, and there's no weird interaction. Because if she sees that you, and feels, most importantly, that you're totally unbothered, you couldn't care less. As a matter of fact, if you tease her and you bust her balls about it, maybe, I would imagine maybe it comes up or whatever. You know, if there's an opportunity and there's joking around and you're hanging out and the topic of, oh, she went home with this guy the other night, like say maybe the girl roommate says something. It's like, just say, oh, you got to keep in mind, she's not into random hookups, though. So I'm sure she went home, went back to that dude's place and kept her hands to herself. She's an innocent little church girl. Innocent child of God, of course. If you have just like a, who cares? Hey, good for you. I'll high five you. Hey, at least you got laid or whatever. You know, was the sex good? You shouldn't care one way or another, because what you're doing is you're communicating that you're butthurt. And this is exactly why she told you she wasn't into random hookups, is because she didn't think you could handle it. She could tell you'd get butthurt and upset. So that's, you know, why she went and did it with somebody else, because she really was down to hook up, especially if she spent all that time with you. And so what will be confusing to you is if you're indifferent to it, if you're humorous about it, if you're playful. Because that's what being humorous is. It shows that you're really not bothered. But when you give her the silent treatment, she says hello and you ignore her, or you seem kind of angry and pissed off. And she may even come up to you and attempt to troll you. You seem a little upset. Like, what do you mean? Upset about what? Well, my drink is getting a little warm. You could get me maybe I'm a little upset because you came over and you didn't bring me a cold beer. I mean, it's like, what good are you? I say, you can't cook a home cooked meal. You can't even bring a man a nice ice cold beer. It's like, what is this? What kind of service is this shit? What kind of joint you running here? Again, if you have that kind of a jovial, I don't care one way, everything's kind of, it's humorous and everything's humorous and amusing to you, then that's attractive. Because then she starts to think, well, maybe I misjudged this guy. And then you never know, you're late at night, you might hear on your door, and you're like, who is it? Housekeeping. And she comes on in, it's like, hey, are you a little cold? Well, come on in here, little girl, and I'll warm you up. Hang out, have fun while you're hanging out, and hook up when the signs are there that she's ready to be kissed, ready to be touched, ready to be seduced. You should treat all women the same, equal opportunity seducer. Where you went wrong is you started kind of focusing on her and, oh, this is serious relationship material. She checks all my boxes. And in essence, treated her like a girlfriend. And so she bounced. She kind of smothered her. She felt like getting involved with you meant she would lose her freedom and things would get awkward. But if you're giving all your attention to other cute girls and you're not really paying any attention to her unless she comes up to get your attention, now she's pursuing you. And then, you're living together, so you're going to have other opportunities. And say you start hooking up with her. You should continue dating and hooking up with other random girls because that's what she's doing. You judging her as girlfriend material and checking all your boxes, that's absurd. You spend a little bit of time with her. You don't know what you don't know yet, bro. People can hide who they are for about the first 90 days, and it will be easier to get to know her since you're living together, and she might even bring home another random dude to your house and hook up with him, and then you get to hear her moaning and screaming while he's plowing and beating up her pelvis. So you have to really be totally indifferent. You couldn't care one way or another. You're humorous about it. If she was one of your frat bros, if this was a cute girl you live with, but you really had no interest in dating and hooking up with her, you're going to have fun. You're going to hear her stories of hooking up with other people or dates that didn't go well. And you should be able to laugh with her along with it and not be bothered. Because when you communicate that you're not bothered and you're totally indifferent, that's when women become even more aggressive, because then they realize that you don't care one way or another. You could take it or leave it. That's truly what indifference is. And so you definitely have some work to do, and it would behoove you to have several other girls that you can date and hook up with, especially if they're cute girls and she knows you hooked up with them, and then she asks you about it. You just say, did you hook up with that girl last night? Gentlemen, don't kiss and tell. Well, I saw her coming out of your room this morning, scantily clad. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think you got me confused with one of your other roommates. It's like, no, I saw her come out, and it's like, she didn't have a top on and she was going to the bathroom. It's like, I think you're imagining things. I think you're hallucinating. It's like, I'm an innocent child of God. I would never do such a thing. I would never bring a cute girl back to my house. Like, I don't want you to get jealous. And so have fun with it. That's the kind of attitude you want to have. And then probably before you know it, she'll be staying in your bed. But you gotta be cool with it. You gotta let her come and go. You can't just like, this is the one, I gotta have her to myself. Because then you chase her out of your life and she bounces. But it could be a fun hookup girl. I wouldn't really look at her as a relationship material, especially when she just went home with some other dude. Probably on some level she was doing it because deep down she didn't think you could handle it. And she was probably assuming you get really jealous and upset. And she did come home and you were kind of irritated and pissed off. So that's kind of a bad way to go, my man. So if you guys haven't already signed up for our paying members only content, in the description of this particular video, there are links to join on YouTube, to join on Spotify, and to join on our website, understandingrelationships.com. Just click the plans tab. When you get there, you can subscribe to consume our members only content on the platform of your choice. Obviously, if you subscribe on the website, you're not going to be able to watch the members only content on YouTube or Spotify. If you subscribe on Spotify, you're not going to be able to watch it on the website or YouTube. I see people thinking that if they subscribe on YouTube that they get to watch on Spotify. I don't know how you think that's technologically possible, but wherever you subscribe is where you're going to consume the content. So I want to clear up that particular confusion. So if you are a paying member, depending on it, the same content is on all 3 platforms, but obviously with the website, you get a 7-day free trial. You could choose a monthly plan or an annual plan, and with the annual plan, you get a 25% discount for paying the whole year up front after the end of the 7-day free trial. Plus, you get the email analysis that goes along with these, because obviously there's no way to put that on YouTube and Spotify. But for those of you that appreciate that and you like the 25% discount, I highly recommend you subscribe on the website to consume the members-only content. And you'll get 6 additional paid video coaching newsletters like this one per week. You also get a weekly 3% Man study group podcast, a weekly Mastering Yourself study group podcast where we go page by page in both of the books and discuss them and the viewer questions that go along with that, and any other special interviews or special videos that we do that'll be deemed for members only, especially when I say the things I really think and feel that I just can't say in a normal monetized video on YouTube. And if you got a question or challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen on any page of my website, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.